Soccer Club, $20 million towards the new Malaga Sports Precinct, and $17 million in upgrades at grassroots motorsports facilities right across the state. Not only does this investment and expansion support healthier lifestyles through sport and physical activity, but also brings together people right across the community to create a great sense of community. In community sport, you have the ABC of healthy mental health and well-being. You've got the act, beyond and commit. Acting, maintaining an active lifestyle, belonging to your local community and your community sports team, and committing. You see right across all our community sports sector, volunteers that make it their life to support the local sports club, and that gives them a greater sense of belonging as well. So community sports is an incredibly important way to maintain the well-being of our communities, maintaining great, healthy, active communities, and maintaining great sports facilities right across the state. And now I hand you over to the Deputy Premier.
Thank you very much. Initially, can I just say how excited we are to be hosting the Socceroos this evening in what is a crucial qualifying game in the road to the World Cup. Can I welcome representatives from Football Australia, also Football West here today, of course, their home centre. So far, we have sold over 57,000 tickets and over 6,000 people have come from interstate and overseas. So this is turning out to be a massive game this evening. There's a few thousand tickets left to sell, so we encourage people to buy their tickets, turn up tonight, and let's make this a record. As I said, there won't be any bigger game than this in Australia this year. This is an incredible event. Australia versus Japan. This is a very, very crucial game in the lead up to the World Cup. Of course, if the Socceroos win tonight, and depending on what happens in the Middle East this evening, they could be right through to the World Cup. So this is a very, very big game. Socceroos versus Japan. Over 57,000 tickets sold. Again, we urge people to rock up. And of course, also a key message, plan your journey. The normal bus routes, the normal bus services don't happen on weeknights, as people know who've experienced AFL. So plan your journey and get there with plenty of time to spare. It's going to be a huge game. And of course, we're here at the Sam Kerr Football Centre that has hosted many, many teams from around the world and around the nation. And this new stage is also about expanding it to support the community and also the development pathway. 2 new pitches which will help support the massive use that this centre has already seen. Of course, over the next 6 weeks, we've got some other key teams training here. We've got, of course, the Matildas coming. We've got Surabaya from Indonesia, and we've got AC Milan all being hosted here over the next 8 weeks. So this is a centre that's being heavily used, a massive demand on the use of the existing 2 pitches. The additional 2 pitches will support that use, support its role in facilitating international teams to base themselves here, national teams, also to support the development pathway for Football West, and of course also about making sure we have a centre that can continue to host but also attract visitors from around the world. So this turning of the side, the 2 new pitches, hopefully will be finished by the end of this year, and again will support use next year. As I said, a centre that was opened only recently, but we've seen already evolve into a key high performance centre for the World Game here in Queen's Park. Of course, as part of the budget too, as the Premier outlined, a record amount in sport and infrastructure spending. We made a whole range of commitments during the election, and that's about improving change rooms, new lighting towers and pitches, hard courts. This is about and ovals. This is about making sure we continually invest in the community, a range of election commitments given, community facilities, and as I said, when you go through the suburbs, through the state, massive demand for improving change rooms to support the increased participation in many sports, and of course the growing role of women, in particular in games like like football. Of course, lighting towers to make sure we can have more training at night, in particular through the winter months, and also making sure we can improve the ovals, improve the number of hard courts, net basketball courts to support more community participation. Okay, any questions?
How much of this money is going to rugby league?
Oh, sorry, in relation to the
332 million.
there'll be some support there. So $20 million, for example, is for the Malaga facility. But in relation to how much of that will depend, there's like hundreds of different grants. So we can go through and try and identify the amount going to football, hard courts, soccer, AFL, rugby, if you want. We can do that. Okay.
And of the 332, is Burswood in that, or is that a separate?
That's separate.
Right.
Other questions for the minister?
Decision looming on bare knuckle boxing. Have you dwelled on it all, given the opposition that is growing in the community against it? Have you reconsidered your position?
I reflect and dwell on everything. So I reflect and dwell, and to be honest, I think what's even clearer to me is it's very hard to differentiate this type of event compared to mixed martial arts and UFC. So, as I said, the feedback that I'm getting in the community is that people understand that it's very hard to differentiate this to previous sports that we've endorsed.
Do you have any update on that meeting this morning?
No, sorry, no.
Do you agree with the Prime Minister that bare knuckle boxing is quite a bit crazy and that governments might need to save people from themselves?
Again, we've gone through it. We've got a Combat Sports Commission, and they've recommended that the sport be allowed. As I said, the same criticism happened in relation to mixed martial arts and UFC, and that's what we'll continue to listen to those who we employ to provide us advice.
Is it appropriate for the Premier to start advertising the event before this decision and down was approved?
Again, as I understand, government, non-government owned facilities do this, and as I said, there's dozens of different types of combat sports that occur throughout the year. Venues promote, that's what they do.
I appreciate that it was before your time, but it was the government that allowed this sport by changing the regs, not the Sports Commission. Combat Sports Commission doesn't.
Oh, they provide advice, and of course we made that decision, yes.
So it's a government decision, not a combat sports
Well,
to allow the sport.
Well, it was based upon advice from the Combat Sports Commission, but yes, it's a government decision.
So they're meeting today, apparently, and are you expecting that they will make a decision and that's it, or will they come to you with, like, this is our recommendation, are you okay with that?
No, they make the decision and that's it. So, as I said, for combat sports, for these events, they don't come across my desk, each individual event. They don't come across my desk. As you said, there was a decision made to allow the sport in Western Australia, and that was a change of regulations following that decision. But in relation to every event, as I said, there's dozens that happen, around probably hundreds, but more like maybe dozens. So they happen throughout the year. I don't get involved in every one of those events.
So it could come to you, and you could knock it back, but you don't expect that the Sports Combat Commission will put anything on your desk that you would have to consider?
Yes, I don't expect that.
When do you think you'll get an indication of when they might decide or make an outcome from this meeting? Have they told you when?
No, I think within the next week, though, is my understanding.
Did you ask for a briefing on what your role is in this process and whether or not, about whatever powers you have to veto the Combat Sports Commission? And did you proactively reach out and say, I'd like to know what my powers are here?
Yeah, I held a meeting with the Combat Sports Commission, I think now just under 2 weeks ago, to understand all the roles and processes, and satisfied myself that they had considered all the issues that were put forward. In putting forward their recommendation to the previous minister, they considered all the issues that were put forward.
Have you at any point considered whether or not a veto was appropriate?
As I said, I find, look, this has been one where, of course, you consider all options, but I can't differentiate between this and UFC. I can't. And for me to say no to this and then support UFC, I think people would rightly say that that was an inconsistent thinking. So I can't differentiate between those two. And so in relation to combat sports, as I said, just because it's not my cup of tea, it's not the Premier's cup of tea, it doesn't mean that we have the right to say no if the community out there are participating and then also wanting to experience this. As I've said, we've got a Combat Sports Commission. They went through all of the issues that have been raised. I have to rely on that advice. And as I said, From a pure consistency point of view, it is very difficult, and I can't differentiate supporting or not supporting this while celebrating UFC. I can't do that.
Governments differentiate all the time. We're differentiating on firearms, automatic firearms, single-shot firearms. You differentiate there, and some of them are banned and some of them aren't.
Yeah, but you base it on the evidence put forward, and from the evidence put forward, as I said, I can't differentiate.
But you do walk a line between that evidence and community expectations. That's your role as a politician, and the representation of the community. Do you not have a role to say, we're noting the opposition, and while we appreciate that there is a hard line to draw, it's time to draw this line at this point?
Yeah, the point I'd say in relation to community is there are different views out there in the community. There are very different views out there in the community. And there are those that are very vocal in opposition to things, and there are those that aren't vocal but support the event. So in relation to the term community, there are many members out there who love combat sports. They train in the gyms, they love combat sports, and they see this as the next part, in a sense, the next chapter of combat sports in relation to these types of events, but more, this is the next chapter in relation to combat sports.
I'm wondering if this falls within the remit of your transport portfolio with City of Perth banning e-scooters from midday after that tragic death this week. First of all, what do you make of that? And second of all, are current regulations enough?
A couple of things there. So I think the Premier and I both had communication from the City of Perth outlining their suspension of the e-scooter hiring. So we both support that suspension. In relation to compliance, what we're doing, of course, and I think further announcements will be made today, is a significant level of compliance activity that will be undertaken by the police over the upcoming week, in particular looking at the issues that we've addressed through these discussions over the past week. And that is, for example, making sure that the weight and the power of these e-scooters haven't been modified beyond the regulations. They'll be undertaking significant compliance activity. In relation to the regulations, there was a review undertaken, a joint review undertaken by the Road Safety Commission and also Department of Transport. That didn't recommend any sort of further regulations that would prohibit the e-scooters being used. But of course, in light of the recent accidents, we'll continue to work across the road safety portfolio, my portfolio, of how we can try and ensure we improve the safety. The reality is the regulations are in place. The fact is a lot of people aren't sticking by the law and they're not abiding by the regulations. So in my view, compliance will be very, very important to try and make sure the community have confidence with what's happening.
I guess
Police have got a lot on their plate. Police are busy, they've got a lot on their plate. How do they need to be able to enforce these regulations?
Well, it's just like road rules. You know, it's the same as road rules. So we have police on the roads, and last night I got breathalyzed leaving Dooma. So
What do you like?
no, zero. So between the Perth Soccer Club and Dooma, there was a bit of traffic because we all got breathalyzed. So they're out there doing their work every day, and so this is part of their work.
Does this patchwork result, though? The City of Perth's suspending e-scooters, but they're available in Joondalup, they're available in Stirling. Does the state need to take more control here, rather than having this response of, we're going to leave it up to the councils?
I think, as I said, as a result of what's happened more recently, I'm happy to re-engage with the Minister for Road Safety about this. So we've already started that engagement, and that has led, of course, to the increased compliance that we'll see over the next week. Happy to reopen the discussion, because I think the real issue is, and we've all seen it, that people aren't sticking by the rules, and they're creating dangerous situations for themselves and for pedestrians. And we're just seeing there were certain set of rules provided to make sure we could roll this out safely, but there's been a heavy abuse of those rules.
Do you think there needs to be a bit more education? They're obviously growing in popularity, particularly in private. You see them
Yep.
on the streets all the time, young kids riding them, perhaps not being aware that they are under the same road rules as vehicles.
In relation to education, yeah, we're happy. We've already started looking at that, because that was a recommendation of the review. We're happy to do more education and more campaigns. So this will be a comprehensive look at what's happening, in particular because of the City of Perth decision.
Would you call for all other councils to suspend?
I'll probably take that one on notice. I'll talk to the Minister for Road Safety about that because I think that needs a considered response.
Will alcohol be, will they be looked at by the police as part of this compliance regime?
As I understand, yes.
So they'll pull people over and breath them?
Yes.
And also the department has its own compliance officers. They look like police except their cars are purple. Is there a bigger role for them to play in terms, I mean, they do heavy haulage and all that sort of stuff. Is there a bigger role for them to play?
Yeah, we'll look at all measures of compliance. You know, there's a number of areas within transport where there seems to be a call for more compliance, so we'll look at all of that and seeing that role of police together with Department of Transport compliance teams. We do have compliance teams, so we may look at how we can involve them more. So we'll look at everything. As we said, it's not acceptable what's been happening. And the death of that pedestrian has, I think, shook us all.
Do they need an alcohol interlock device on them?
I'm not sure how you would implement that, but
Well, when you put them on cars with drunk drivers, your scooter doesn't
Probably
go unless you're below 0.0.
Yeah, possibly, but I'm not an expert on interlock devices.
There's some public health issues there as well.
Yeah.
We're all sharing the same nozzle, but I understand where you're going on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And they might tip them over because it's so heavy. Yes.
Don't get us started.
Don't get me sorry. Sorry. That's another whole issue.
The Auditor General recently released a report looking into local government expenditure, some of them spending money on champagne and oysters. Do you think that passes the pub test?
It doesn't pass the pub debt test, but it's, again, councils have to be accountable to their ratepayers. I don't think it passes the pub test. They need to be far more accountable and also deliver on what they're elected to do.
Do you think any